Hello, welcome. Today, I'm covering for Quark, who is proudly the most unscrupulous and shrewd businessman this side of the wormhole. And today, I'm going to show you some of the highest quality merchandise when it comes to what humans would call a science fiction cocktail. Welcome to your inaugural lesson. Over here at the bar on the space station Deep Space Nine, I've decided to share with you some sci-fi themed cocktails that I've come up with, hopefully in order to demonstrate that there is a valid school of thought around formulating a science fiction mixed drink, much in the same way there is for tiki cocktails. We should be able to get the basics down with these three cocktails, so let's get started. In a lot of science fiction you would call futuristic, the world is often depicted as a lot more homogenized than it is today. Now, that's not to say that individual and distinct cultures become eliminated, but rather they are allowed to coexist and share cultural aspects with one another a lot more freely than they would be able to do perhaps in our world today. A prime example of this is the film Blade Runner, where the residents of the futuristic city of Los Angeles speak a dialect called city speak, which is a combination of Japanese, Spanish, German, and a smattering of other languages.
No, 4.
Really out of necessity due to the high number of very distinct cultures constantly intermingling with each other, really living on top of one another. Likewise, in a way that a distinct linguistic culture could arise in a situation like this, so too, I think, could a culinary one, which has already been happening all over the world in many distinct instances. But a cocktail, for example, may have ingredients from different cultures and locations all over the world. Now, Quark, the astute and fastidious Ferengi businessman that he is, would see all of the Starfleet officers aboard the Deep Space Nine space station, a veritable cornucopia of diverse cultures and ideas. And not wanting to miss an opportunity to exploit their natural curiosity and so-called evolved moral and cultural values.
But remember rule of acquisition number 111. Treat people in your debt like family. Exploit them.
Here is a beverage that he would likely come up with that would best appeal to a spacefaring diplomatic and exploratory society. So our first cocktail of the day is indeed going to be shaken, and the first ingredient that we are going to need is some of this tamarind-infused vodka. I always wanted to use some tamarind in a cocktail, so I took some tamarind paste, blended it with vodka, passed it through a coffee filter, and this is what we're left with. Highly recommend making it super easy to do. Now, obviously on this theme of cultural exchange and a potential cultural homogeneity, we've got vodka that was invented in Russia, although this is Swedish vodka, and tamarind that's native to India. Tamarind vodka, we will need 2 ounces. For our next ingredient, we are going over to Japan to get some matcha. We will need about 1 bar spoon of matcha powder. Next we go over to France, where we are going to use some orgeat, 3/4 of an ounce. A lot of syrup for a cocktail like this, but tamarind is quite tart, can be quite sour, so we need to counterbalance that with a little extra sugar. We are going to need 1/2 ounce of lime juice, using these limes, which I found out are called Persian limes, which are an artificial hybrid of a lemon and a key lime. So they're not quite as biting as regular limes. If you can get key limes, definitely use those. When I'm in Florida, I'm able to get my hands on some key limes, and the daiquiris they make is just phenomenal. 1/2 ounce. And I have it under very good advisement that grapefruit goes phenomenally well with tamarind. 1/2 ounce. Grapefruits, of course, being native to Barbados. Then we are going to go to the South American continent and use 1.5 ounces of pineapple juice. I'm also told that chili goes really well with tamarind. I think chili and tamarind are a staple of Indian cooking. So I'm going to take just a tiny pinch of chili flakes. Then we are going to add ice to this, and we're going to shake. I'm going to take this glass. This is a whiskey tasting glass. We are going to double strain this and green cocktail. And to garnish this, I'm going to take a fresh jar of maraschino cherries. Get one on a pick, hopefully. And there we have our first cocktail on our whistle-stop tour through the culinary culture of outer space. Let's give it a try. Whoa. Man, that is phenomenal. Oh, there is so much going on there. So up front, you sort of get the zing, that tang from the tamarind. It hits you right out the gate. Very quickly, overpowering that is that intense grassy note that comes out of the matcha powder. Then that's very quickly overtaken by the intermingling of the lime and the grapefruit that's quickly overridden by the orgeat. I think the chili flakes were a little bit lost in there. I might be getting a little bit of that savory note at the back, but it's crazy. It really does come in that order. Very quickly, boom, tamarind, matcha powder, citrus, orgeat. Yeah, that's phenomenal. That is really, really experiential. Just that sort of ordering, that layering of the flavors really gives it a very, very unique experience to this cocktail. This one I'm going to affectionately dub the Starfleet Sling. There we are, cocktail number one, Starfleet Sling. What's next?
Ready to get it on.
Now, every time I see Quark make a drink aboard his bar at Deep Space Nine, he's always so quick. He's just pulling bottles out from below, mixing it, sending it out in record time every single time. So I figured there must have been some advances made in the technology that allows you to create or distill, preserve, ship and store these ingredients, keeping them in perfect condition, just ready to mix and go. Which is why I think a good science fiction cocktail should utilize as many modern techniques and technologies as it can to create new flavors and textures in a way that's very distinct from classic cocktails, tiki cocktails, or even contemporary ones. This cocktail will utilize a relatively simple, modern technological development that I think most people should be able to handle. But before we get to that, let's begin making this cocktail. To start, we are going to need 1 ounce of Plymouth gin into a mixing glass, because this is going to be a stirred cocktail. We're going to use some Sci-Fi lychee liqueur, 3/4 of an ounce, so again, pulling from this theme of ingredients from really different parts of the globe here. Japan, England so far. I mean, come on, it's a sci-fi cocktail, it's got to be a bright colour, right? 1/4 of an ounce of blue curacao. We're going to need 1 ounce of maraschino, maybe a hair less. I'm going to do a little less. And you're probably realizing, oh, this is just a last word variation. But if it's a last word variation, then we've got to have citrus, so it's got to be shaken. Well, we do have citrus, but we don't need to shake it. I have made some clarified lemon juice. I used a recipe by Kevin Koss to make this. Basically consists of adding a vegan type gelatin substance called agar, and that, when it solidifies, basically picks up with it all of the suspended particulates in the lemon juice, stripping them away, leaving you with a perfectly clear liquid. Well, mine's not perfectly clear, but it'll serve our function quite well. But it is lemon juice. It tastes exactly like lemon juice. It's lost none of its flavour, but that means that we can stir it into a cocktail without having to shake to incorporate. 1 ounce. We're also, just as a nice little modifier, we're going to add a dash of absinthe. This is pre-release Hendrick's absinthe. I was giving some as a sample by a brand rep way back in the day when I used to work in some high-end bars in Edinburgh. With 1 dash. We're going to add some edible luster. I've got some little spray bottle that's usually used for cakes, but this will serve our purpose quite well. Remember, a lot of this is about presentation. We're going to add ice and we are going to stir. And that should be enough. We are going to take our lovely little tulip glass, and I've got a little light up cube in there that will give us quite a nice visual effect.
Lower your shields and
Because again, sci-fi, it's all about presentation. Well, part of it's about presentation. And there we have a cocktail I'm calling the Final Transmission. We have a beautiful effect with that luster floating, looking kind of like stardust, that beautiful blue colour. I mean, it's reminiscent of every drink you've seen in every science fiction property ever.
Decided to drown our sorrows.
In mouthwash?
It is Romulan ale from Star Trek.
And that light cube, it looks kind of cool. Let's try this, cheers. That maraschino and that lychee hit you right up front. It's good that maraschino has such body to it. It does tend, I think, to overpower a lot of things if you don't counterbalance it with equally strong ingredients. So maybe scaling back the maraschino a tiny bit more would be perfect here, but that citrus has not lost any of its punch at all. That lemon comes through bright and strong and really accentuates all those citrusy notes in Plymouth gin that Plymouth gin is so popular for. It is quite a citrusy type of gin, very similar to London Dry, but distinct. And that lychee is a beautiful flavour. I love lychee flavours in so many different things. Maraschino, punchy lemon, a little bit of that gin in there, a little bit of that juniper, and that lychee is just an undercurrent onto all those flavours. And it is perfectly crystal clear. The glass is a little bit frosted because the drink was nice and cold, but that's how we like it. Right, that's cocktail number 2. What's next?
Well, I'm moving out.
What?
Now, this drink is a real cocktail that Quark serves at his bar on Deep Space Nine, and this cocktail constitutes my third point as to what I think makes a good science fiction cocktail, and that is all about the story. Science fiction is a storytelling medium, and people want to be immersed in it in a way that far transcends simple ambience, like tiki, for example. The in-universe motivation for why a place looks the way it does or a drink tastes the way it does is paramount to the overall experience. And it can be as simple as, this cocktail is a mixed drink served at Quark's aboard the space station Deep Space Nine. And that little story only leads to more questions, more answers, a longer storyline, and an overall more immersive experience. This cocktail is called a black hole, and like pretty much every other drink at Quark's bar, he built it in the glass, so that's what we are going to be doing today. And we don't often see Quark use ice, but I think we're allowed to today, so we are going to start with a large. After shaving down our ice, we can plop our large ice cube into the glass. Now, the black hole cocktail, the only information about it that we get, I think, from pretty much any sources outside of Deep Space Nine, is that it is opaque black and pungent. And well, that is enough guidance for me. Pungent, they want pungent, they're gonna get. No better way to start that with 1 ounce of Smith & Cross Jamaican rum. 1 ounce into our glass. And that smells phenomenal. And now we need to consult the whiskey shelf for the next part. The Freud 10 Isla whiskey. This stuff is the smokiest, most full-bodied and pungent whiskey I think available. And I love it. Again, they said pungent. Whew, man, that smells good. Pungent they're gonna get. We're gonna go for half an ounce of our Lafroig 10-year Scottish whiskey. And a flavour that I found complements both Scotch and rum equally well is banana liqueur. We have this fantastic Giffard Benin du Brésil. We're gonna need half an ounce. And as this is kind of an old-fashioned variant, we're going to use some Angostura bitters. I don't know how much that was. 5 dashes of Angostura bitters. But I hear you say, this is supposed to be opaque black. It's very clearly not. Well, as I said, Quark is, you know, he's a businessman. He's not going to spend a lot of money getting some exotic squid ink or activated charcoal in order to make his opaque black cocktail. He's just going to use some supermarket black dye. I mean, come on, this is the future. Why are we going to all these lengths? I'm going to use a small capful of this black food dye, and we are going to stir. Just enough to get those ingredients incorporated and to get it chilled quite nicely. And I think what will complement this cocktail really nicely is just taking a little coin, a little bit of an orange peel, expressing that, rubbing that around the rim, and discarding that. And there we have a black hole cocktail. Orange oil on the nose, and that Lafroig really punches through. Whoa. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Whoa, that's changing. That changes on you. What do we get up front? Smith & Cross. The body of the Smith & Cross is so well complemented by that banana liqueur that really adds a lot of bass, a lot of punch right up to the bottom of that. You have this smoky undercurrent that just sort of goes all the way through that, but you get these really rich banana-y notes from the liqueur, obviously, but that heavily brings out those same notes in the Smith & Cross rum. I mean, the proof doesn't, you know, you don't miss how proofy that is, and the orange oil really helps accentuate those brighter flavors that you get from the Lefroy, actually, but also the banana liqueur. That's a delicious drink. As you can see, all of these drinks take on a really uncommon hue. A good science fiction cocktail should be colourful, complex, use unconventional ingredient combinations, modern technology, and most importantly, tell a story. If you restrict the flavour profiles and the presentation here in certain ways, well then you're not a million miles away from tiki, honestly.
Go on, chance your arm.
And if you simplify everything down but keep the bright colours, well then you're not a million miles away from a disco cocktail either. But these, right here, are science fiction cocktails. Most importantly, they tell a story. And they're proprietary. If you want to make one of these at home, you'll have to pay royalties to Quark. 1 slip of gold-pressed latinum per cocktail made at home, or 5 bars for a lifetime's worth of access. Naturally, that applies to one product only.
There's nothing here but worthless gold.
So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed watching this every bit as I enjoyed making it, and I hope you've picked up on some of the ideas that I've been trying to put forward here. That science fiction cocktails, they're a real tangible idea that I think has a lot of different places to go and is a really exciting culinary space to explore. So make some of these at home, make some up of your own, try and follow some of these rules I've laid out in this episode. Let me know what you think. And remember the 60-second rule of acquisition. The riskier the road, the greater the profit. Cheers.